You'll do what you're told. I'm gonna pin you. This is my game.
Those 5 words from Conor McGregor have haunted Michael Chandler for 2 entire years. In the twilight of his career, when he should be earning as much money as possible, or making one final run for the title, Chandler has instead sat on the sidelines, praying for that red panty night with McGregor.
If they don't make Chandler versus McGregor, then it's doing a huge disservice to not just the UFC, but the Ultimate Fighter franchise. We have to finish this story.
But now, it's not happening.
Is Chandler still going to be his opponent?
The other thing,
If
no.
Conor beats Chandler, no?
No. So,
Instead, Chandler is fighting Charles Oliveira, and if he wins, is eyeing a title shot and wants nothing to do with Conor McGregor.
What I've realized the entire time, but haven't been public about it, I don't need Conor McGregor to cement my legacy in this sport.
He's been played with for 2 years, laughed at by the entire MMA community, but has finally had enough of Conor's games. So how did McGregor toy with Chandler for so long? Why did Chandler put up with it? And what are they both going to do next? When Michael Chandler finally left Bellator behind and signed with the UFC, he made a huge splash at 155 pounds. Sure, he didn't win every fight, and sure, he hasn't won the title, but every Chandler fight was must-watch TV. From finishing Dan Hooker to putting Tony Ferguson's lights out, Chandler became a new star in an already talent-stacked division. Even his trio of losses against Oliveira, Gaethje, and Dustin were all wars for the ages.
From October of 2020 to November of 2022, in a 25-month span, I did 6 training camps, 1 backup fight for the world title fight, 5 fights in 25 months, 4 fight of the night or performance of the night bonuses, 2 fight of the year candidates, 1 fight of the year against Justin Gaethje, 1 KO of the year against Tony Ferguson, 1 debut of the year against Dan Hooker, debut of the year, fight of the year, knockout of the year in 25 months. That is why I'm taking the Charles Oliveira fight.
And while MMA fans found Chandler's motivational speeches and general demeanor a little cringy, when push came to shove, he'd always throw caution to the wind, and those same fans loved it. Especially considering he has the wrestling accolades to go in and try to avoid damage, bank rounds, and win decisions, but he just wanted to trade bombs.
Gaethje was countering nice, but Chandler fought Gaethje's fight. It's just that you guys brawl like that, Gaethje's gonna win.
And that reckless nature made him the perfect dancing partner for the potential return of the sport's biggest star, Conor McGregor. By now, we all know Conor's story. He had seemingly recovered from that devastating leg break, was always talking about a return, yet would be pictured partying into the early hours all too frequently.
I'd like to announce the return date for myself, the notorious Conor McGregor, for the greatest comeback of all time. Will take place in Las Vegas for International Fight Week on June the 29th. And the opponent, Michael Chandler. And the weight, Mr. Chandler, 185 pounds.
But a comeback had to be on the cards at some point. And from the UFC's point of view, they wanted to give him a winnable fight like they did with Cowboy Cerrone, and not one as risky as, say, an Islam or Gaethje. So with both reeling from a loss to Dustin, the stars aligned for Chandler and McGregor to become rival coaches on The Ultimate Fighter, where at the end of the show, the two would seemingly go head-to-head. On The Ultimate Fighter, the contrast between the two fighters couldn't be more apparent. Chandler was tactically planning every workout, taking it incredibly serious and doing everything he could. While Conor, if he'd even turn up, would throw parties at the house and antagonize Chandler at every opportunity.
He's as advertised, I should say, I think is the best way to describe him.
Cheers. Cheers. Bravo, baby. Salud, proper out.
One thing that Conor does really well is motivate people. He's got a fantastic energy.
It made for hilarious TV, and fans couldn't wait for the two to fight and settle their differences. But strangely enough, the show came and went, yet no fight announcement happened. Instead, McGregor was just out partying, hanging out on his yacht and seemingly doing anything but training.
Michael Chandler training for your 303, and it shows him, with his gigantic quads, doing stuff, slamming balls and all the rest of it. McGregor training for 303, and he's there. He's in the club. He's loving it. I know which one I'd rather be doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Based on his social media, Conor didn't look like an active UFC fighter. And the more time Chandler spent waiting, the more time the community felt he was making a mistake. Yet despite all the noise, He was adamant on getting the big money fight. Perhaps it was a case of the sunk cost fallacy for Chandler. He'd already invested a bunch of time waiting for Conor to be ready, so he might as well keep going.
I knew he was going to come back. I was getting enough inside information behind the scenes, behind closed doors from the UFC that he was coming back. It was just going to take a little bit of time. And I think patience is the most undervalued asset of a human being, of the human existence. And people can say what they want about me, but all I did was practice patience.
But when we found out that McGregor wasn't even enrolled in the UFC's anti-doping program and needed 6 months of testing before he could compete, it cast serious doubt as to whether the bout would even take place. There were theories that Conor had taken steroids to aid his recovery, and that was why he hadn't been tested. And while Chandler believed them to be true, he didn't care. He just wanted to fight and get his money.
When Conor was limping around for the better part of a year after 2 snapped bones, he was naturally going to gain weight, but yeah, how big his face got.
Yeah, but you're not getting
his
like
upper
the Barry
body.
Bonds chin.
Yeah, I mean, the dude,
know.
some of those photos, you can't help but to think, man, are they photoshopped because it's that drastic, or
he's jacked.
He's jacked. He was a big boy.
The fight was looking more and more unlikely by the month. But then in April 2024, after 18 months of waiting, Chandler got the news every MMA fan had hoped for, but wasn't confident would ever come.
June 29th, Conor versus Chandler. 5 rounds, 170 pounds.
Lo and behold, Chandler's patience had finally paid off. In his eyes, he was just a matter of weeks away from beating McGregor in spectacular fashion, bringing home the biggest payday of his career, taking his star power to a whole new level, and getting another shot at the lightweight title after. But that's not how it played out at all. Soon disaster would hit, and Chandler would be back at square one with nothing to show for it. At first, everything was moving forward like any other fight. McGregor was sharing sparring footage, and Chandler was his usual self. A press conference was set for June 3rd in Dublin, just 4 weeks before the fight was supposed to take place. But hours before McGregor and Chandler were set to trade words, the press conference was mysteriously cancelled with no details given to fans. Chandler likely had his bags packed, suit ironed, and was on his way to an airport. Instead, the entire MMA community were speculating what was going on, especially considering McGregor was caught partying just days prior to the press conference.
Maybe this will be controversial. I don't consider Conor McGregor a championship top-level fighter anymore. I don't personally care that much like what he's doing throughout camp. Like, Conor McGregor is more entertainment, more spectacle at this point. He's fighting Michael Chandler. He's not fighting Islam Makhachev. I'm not that worried. It doesn't change much of how I thought about the fight because I probably factored in that there'd be some of that during fight camp. Like this, if you had the vision of Conor McGregor being some buckled down, super disciplined, prime of his career type guy anymore, like, I got some bad news. That probably wasn't happening no matter what.
The days and weeks that followed were a roller coaster. According to anonymous sources and rumors, it felt like one day the fight was on, and the next the UFC were desperately searching for replacement fighters. But the UFC remained dead silent.
10 days, It's usually like 2 days.
Right, I think that they have already owed the fans an explanation. We're 17 days away from the fight. The press conference was canceled 9-10 days ago. We have not heard anything. We still don't know if the fight is happening or not. I don't think we have gotten anything, though, because they don't have a resolution. What you just said, I don't think they've reached one yet.
The only slight bit of concrete news fans had was that McGregor had an injury that was touch and go. But 16 days before UFC 303, it was confirmed that Conor wouldn't be ready in time.
All right, guys, here I am again. Conor McGregor is out of 303 versus Michael Chandler with an injury.
Conor's injury was ironically a broken toe, the same injury he gave Rafael dos Anjos a lot of trash talk for when he pulled out of their scheduled fight way back in 2016.
I looked at the picture dos Anjos put up, and it's a bruise. I mean, I heard ice works wonders. What do you want me to say? They all have sore vaginas lately. It's crazy. There's something going on. I don't know. Dos Anjos broke his foot and his vagina in the same damn day, and same with Edgar. I couldn't believe the odds of that to happen.
But for Chandler, it was a massive blow. He had just turned 38 years old, had waited almost 2 years, and now was at the mercy of McGregor yet again. But hopefully it was a case of rescheduling. letting Conor take a few months or so to recover and get back in fighting shape. And as is the consistent theme in this story, that's not how it went down. In the months that followed UFC 303's fallout, McGregor, Chandler, and the UFC were all pretty quiet. We only had 2 AM tweets from Conor McGregor saying the fight would happen in 2024 to hold our hat on. July drifted into August, and then it wasn't until mid-September, nearly 2 years on from his last fight, when Chandler finally decided enough is enough.
That's what I do. I'm an active guy. I'm constantly in shape. I'm constantly training. So it was time for me to make a pivot, only because of the timeline. And you guys can ask Dana how long the timeline was going to be until Conor actually comes back, but it was too long for me. I'm not waiting around.
He claimed he gained more eyeballs, more fans, more everything through The Ultimate Fighter, and all the media appearances he's done compared to fighting.
I got more promo, more eyeballs, more of everything in the last year and a half than I would have gotten with 3 fights.
But he's clearly trying to save the embarrassment from all those fans who can sit back and say, "We told you so." After all, he lost 2 of the most important years of his career and has nothing to show for it. And Conor is still claiming he wants the fight and that all the drama isn't his doing.
So I've been tested more than twice. All these other athletes, yet I struggle to get a date. So, I've talked to Sheikh Turkey and said, "Sheikh Turkey, can you assist me here?" As far as Chandler rematching Oliveira, I'm happy with the date. It's November. Maybe we can still do it after, if they're not going to line me out till maybe December, January, February, or one of these dates. Maybe we can still do it. I'm just a bit, out of the loop with it, so.
The only reason that could be true is the fact that the UFC are renegotiating their TV deal in 2025.
For the people at home who don't understand it, basically, they're like, why is Conor not fighting? Conor has 2 fights left on his fight deal, but the UFC is trying to renew their rights deal because they license their content, which are the fights, to platforms. So they're trying to renew their deal with, they're negotiating multiple people, but let's say it's going to go with ESPN. They're trying to renew the deal and get him the most amount of money. A part of that negotiation is, hey, we have Conor McGregor for 2 more fights. But if he were to fight now, that wouldn't be a part of the negotiation. The company would be like, oh yeah, well, you only have Conor for one fight. So that's why Conor's not fighting right now.
And Dana White is confident McGregor won't fight until 2025, and that it won't be against Chandler.
Is Chandler still going to be his opponent?
The other thing,
if
no.
Conor beats Chandler,
No. So,
whoa, you just slid that in? No? Because Chandler had the 2024 ultimatum? Is that Chandler's choice?
No, Chandler said, I'm done waiting. I want to fight.
For real? Mm-hmm. This is like huge breaking news.
Yeah.
For Chandler, though, he couldn't continue waiting on something that may not happen anymore. So instead, he's rematching with Charles Oliveira and is considering the title shot if he wins.
And now I get the opportunity to take a title run. I beat Charles Oliveira, I become the #1 contender. I beat Charles Oliveira, I can choose to go fight Islam or Arman. I believe it's going to be Islam. Or if Conor can finally get his house in order and put together a training camp and show up to a fight, maybe I go fight Conor and we finish the Ultimate Fighter 31.
But the impact of waiting around for Conor has not only ruined 2 entire years of his career, it may even hurt his future. At 38 years old, Chandler will now have a question mark about his age, and after taking 2 years away from the sport, may be hit with some ring rust. After all, he's been fighting professionally since 2009 and has never taken more than a year's break in between fights. So, while you can never say never in MMA, unfortunately for Michael Chandler, it seems like he sat on the sidelines for 2 entire years for a payday that'll now never come. And if hearing about Chandler's bad luck over the years made you sad, make sure to watch this video next, as it's guaranteed you'll have a good laugh at fighters roasting interviewers.